for being here, guys. I'll just say it's really great to be here at Experimental Sound Studio. Long time, been coming here, long time member, and huge fan of everything that goes on in this space and in the organization. And I just wanted to thank Tim and Andrew and Ken and the whole Option crew, and then of course everyone else here in the organization, Adam, Alex, Ralph, everyone else who does things here, Olivia. And this is really cool to be able to set up all this stuff and just try some things. So appreciate you giving me that opportunity. Super happy to be here. thing.
Make it medium.
Welcome, everybody. Option at Experimental Sound Studio. This week, what you just heard was a wonderful solo set by our guest, Quin Kirchner. Quin, welcome.
Thank you, Tim.
So nice to hear you.
It was great to play. Thanks for having me.
I feel like I've known you so long that we're only going to scratch the surface with all the things we can talk about.
Totally.
So I guess we're just going to have you back. For
that
part
works.
Two.
Yeah, we'll do part two.
But let's jump in. If you don't mind, the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is your integration of electronics.
Okay.
Seems really, you got a really good handle on it, really controlled, really focused, and really well integrated into the set. When did you start getting interested in electronics? Maybe I should say, when did you get interested into applying them into your playing?
Well, I probably, I would have to say sometime when I was like in college at UNO, University of New Orleans, living in New Orleans, and I got my first sampler, which I'm still using. It was one of the samplers I'm using there, Dr. Sample, the SP303 is called, and I was just curious, I had always been into like sample culture and like hip hop and everything around that. And I was trying to I was just curious in it. This is probably 2003, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I I got that sampler and kind of started experimenting with the basics of that. And then it's probably the earliest I started using it in this context is with a group that I had actually in New Orleans called Grilly Biggs, which was two drummer band with Milton Villarrubia, who was it was a New Orleans band, and Matt McClyman on vibes and Matt Golumbisky on bass. Cool. And we all started to kind of integrate electronics into our rigs, and that's when I kind of started playing the drums through the sampler and using it as an effects box as well as something with samples loaded into it.
It sounds super organic the way it's integrated into your set. It sounds like something that you've really been working on for a long time and really comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I have been working on it for a long time. I wouldn't say I'm ever really that comfortable with it, and just because I've I don't know, it's always kind of teetering on the edge in a certain way, and there's just a lot of like adding the whole element of electricity and signal path to like a drum set. Totally. Is just like this. There's a lot of like elements of possible failure, or however you say it.
That can add some interesting tension.
Yeah, if one pedal the setting is different than you're used to, which happens often. I think it probably happened just now too. Something is just not working right, and you kind of have to flow with that.
Yeah, totally. Well, you fooled me, because it did feel, at least from the audience perspective, that it was like you had a pretty good handle on it. Like the dynamics of it, the integration of all the different sounds and all the pedals and everything.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah. So you mentioned UNO. Let's talk about New Orleans a little bit, if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
You are from Oak Park originally,
correct,
right? And you went to UNO to go to school.
Right.
When did you head down there, and how long were you there?
So I graduated high school in 2000 and moved there that August.
Okay.
And then I was there almost exactly 5 years to the day, to basically until Hurricane Katrina.
Got it. There is, I mean, you don't need to hear this from me, so much music coming out of that city all the time. Yeah. That it's just, what an amazing place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a unique place in the world, and what a great place to be able to spend some time and like work. Because, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but the drummers that come out of New Orleans, there's a quality to their playing that it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
And I'm generalizing a little bit, but when you hear people like Ed Blackwell or Vernell Fournier or Johnny Vidacovich or all these guys, there's some quality to their swing. And you can't say, oh, it's because they're from New Orleans, they're going to play a little behind the beat. It's not like that necessarily.
Right, it's not uniform.
It's not uniform. Yeah. But maybe, do you want to talk a little bit about like qualities in drummers from New Orleans, something that you maybe absorbed or recognized or were inspired by. And like I said, it's not uniform. So, but maybe just describe a bit about.
Well,
New Orleans drumming.
I think I was really lucky to move there when I did at 18 and really not knowing anything as much as I knew or thought I knew, to go to that city where like everyone's a drummer, like everyone, literally.
Totally.
And it's just, I mean, the cliches of it's in the water, it's in the air, whatever, but really it is culturally, so ingrained from a young age to everyone who grows up there, that there is something, rhythmic about just the way of life.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And that does permeate everything you do and just day-to-day life. And also, I think there's an element of osmosis, that typically you can't rely on anything like that to learn. But there's something about just like living in the lifestyle there that does kind of get into your soul and gets into like how you make music, and how you go about your life. And I think that definitely got in me at a certain age, that when I was really kind of really trying, like just absorbing anything I can and really just trying to learn. And, it's cool because people think of New Orleans as, a lot of people think of it as sort of, this traditional jazz, center where, jazz was originated, which is true. And it is a hotbed for that style of music today, still. But, obviously you just have like the entire spectrum of music there. Right. You have obviously the brass band culture, which is its own thing, kind of tangentially related to the early jazz. And then you have, there was a really strong like punk rock, indie rock scene there when I was there, and still experimenters, lots of like free improvisation going on, a really kind of pretty rich scene there that also brought in cats from all over the world. That's where I was, I saw like Die Like a Dog trio in New Orleans for the first time, because they would make it down there. I know you would go down there too at the same time. So, for me, I was able to also not just doing the schooling and studying with great drummers and a jazz studies context and other great teachers, Steve Masakowski, Ed Petersen.
Oh, wow.
That were at UNO, but also, everyone talks about University of the Streets, that saying.
Totally.
And there's certainly that at UNO, your schooling was really going on at the Funky Butt. Or at the, at the
clubs,
at the,
right?
at the
On
Dragon's
the stage.
Den.
Totally.
And doing stuff like that. Playing, whether it's jam sessions or whether it's like freaky free improv things, putting together a group to just play free or write kind of whatever kind of music you wanted to compose and perform, So all of that really, I think, was vital to me being able to develop all those different things simultaneously,
What a wonderful experience to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like an 18, I don't know about you, but like 18 to like 21, was it? To
Basically
22,
20, 23.
Serious formative years.
Yeah.
And to be in that environment. Like, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you went to New York right after that?
Yeah. So Katrina obviously was like,
devastating.
We could go on and on about that, but ultimately, like everyone was just kind of like scrambling, and I had just enrolled in graduate school to get my master's at UNO, and all the school started 1 week before Katrina, so everyone was like a week into their school year.
Oh wow.
And so there's a lot of schools obviously in New Orleans, so I ended up in Lafayette, Louisiana, with actually probably some people Anthony Cuccia, Jimbo Walsh, and Dan Oestreicher. We all had a band called The Other Planets.
Got it.
And we kind of all just ended up kind of packed in with Anthony's parents. And Jimbo and Jana, his wife, bought a house like nearby, like kind of on a whim, and we were all just kind of like trying to figure out what to do. And in those 2 weeks, I started learning that, started reading and different like articles and stuff like, different schools around the nation are taking in these refugee students. You have to imagine like a school like Tulane, however many students they have. All of those students, including the master's level students, are all just kind of like, what do we do? Where do we go? And so programs are bringing them in. So I kind of was like, I wonder if I can do that. Started hitting up some schools that I thought might be into that, maybe like willing to kind of take me on. And Manhattan School of Music, of all places, was like, I have to give it up to the staff there, the teaching staff and the administration there. They were just like, you know what? We'll find a place for you here. Like if you can come down, like class just started, but you got to be here next week.
Wow.
And this was probably on like a Thursday, and I had to be there by Monday.
Wow.
And so
that's a quick move.
I know. And it was really one of these things that you just didn't expect at all. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to be living in New York now and enrolled in a prestigious master's program like Monday,
Wow.
But I did it, and so
Yeah.
I flew there. They gave me a dorm room. A couple of the like RAs like went and bought like bedding and like a lamp and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like I had
they
like
set you
suddenly
up.
they like set me up, and I was just right in the program. Like by Monday I was like doing coursework and
Wow.
I think it worked out for them in that they didn't have any master's level drummers at the time. So I kind of plugged in really nicely to their system, and worked out for me because it was the best thing for me to do, to have that to focus on with everything that was going on. And just, it was really easy to spiral out into like, a depression or just who knows what, not unlike what we've all kind of gone through this past COVID, where everything is just erased from your calendar.
Right.
Everything is on pause, and you're just like sitting there left to kind of think about things and
A little
try to understand what is my life? What am I doing?
Right, totally.
In a way, I had some good practice at that back in 2005. And this time around, I was like, wow, here we go again. Okay.
Wow.
But so that was how I ended up in New York.
Okay.
Like, I had this like very specific like enrollment really to keep me busy. But obviously when you go to school in New York, you also, same thing, University to the streets. I'm going down the 55 bar, hitting up Smalls, and just kind of, interestingly, there were some other cats from New Orleans that were in town too, doing similar things. So I was connecting with them. And that was a really kind of amazing, period. And I was there for one semester until basically, December 2005. And then it was clear that that arrangement wasn't going to work out for various reasons on a continual basis.
Right.
And rather than kind of take on loans and do all that to kind of stay there, I just came back here.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I had already kind of loosely been planning on doing. Just, not necessarily right then and there, but
got it.
Yeah. So New York was great to do that. And
to
learn and
totally
focus on that.
And absorb like you did in New Orleans. What a different city, a way different city and way different vibe, but equally as amazing for different reasons. Like as much as when I'm in New Orleans, I'm feeling this like serious, like community vibe that's beautiful, a little bit laid back, and just it feels kind of like we're doing our thing down here. And New York is like really fast, and it's also an amazing place because there's like so many great musicians there.
It's super inspiring.
Super
in
inspiring.
A similar way.
In a similar way, just inspiring in a different way. But to have both of those experiences and then come back to Chicago is pretty great.
Yeah, it is.
Unique,
I feel lucky, and
absolutely.
interestingly, in the couple years prior to that, Lizzie, who my wife Lizzie, we were dating at the time, and she was going to NYU.
Okay.
And so she was living in New York, and so I, every chance I got, would go visit and hang out for various periods of time. And so I was already kind of, I had tastes of like living there, going there regularly enough. She had a place I would stay with her, and we would just kind of go and hit up every kind of jazz club we could. Just
Cool.
kind of do all of that, you
Yeah,
know.
totally.
And so I knew some people that lived there, some friends from either from high school or even that had moved from New Orleans. Like Jesse Lewis was there, and Samir Zarif, a couple people that
Mm-hmm.
I had worked with a lot in New Orleans that had since moved there. So then I was there, and some of these, you know, it was sort of like already familiar. I wasn't learning neighborhoods. I wasn't learning the
Right.
train. Like I kind of
Right.
knew what I was doing once I was there, which was nice too. I mean, but so yeah, tons of inspiration from that experience for sure. Yeah,
Great.
55 bars. Like spent a ton of time there.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2005. Yeah.
I think my first trip to New York, my place I was going to stay fell through when I was like 18 years old. And so I was like, where am I going to stay? And I went to Smalls. And at that point, they stayed open till like 6 a.m. So I just stayed at the jazz club all night.
Did you sleep there?
No, kind of dozed off towards the end, but there was like music up until like almost 6. Like it was insane. It was like a concert, then another concert, then
Right.
a jam session.
Yeah,
And for the jam
it never
session, it was
ended.
kind of just open, and like I like woke up and like went and had breakfast. I'm like, I didn't sleep at all,
Yeah.
and now it's another day in
Yeah.
Manhattan.
That was when Smalls was like, I remember going in like the early 2000s, and it was just like not even a bar. It was like there was a bar physically.
But it wasn't a bar.
But
No,
it
you're
was
right. This
just
was in
like-
the 90s, and yeah, it was like someone brought some food. Like the owner
Yeah.
was like, here's some food you can have.
It was like a couple of 2 liters of soda.
Yeah, it
in
was
cups,
that vibe. It
and
was
you
more
would,
like a little-
BYO,
Totally.
some
Yeah.
bottle.
Yeah,
and-
there was no bar. You didn't. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
when
there was
you-
physically a bar there and people behind it, but there was nothing for sale.
Yeah, they weren't selling drinks.
It
Yeah.
seemed like almost like a squat to
It
me
was-
at the
yeah,
time. I know
totally.
it wasn't, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
felt that way. I was like, this is unreal.
yeah. It was amazing. Like, amazing time to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in Chicago now since 05 or since
15 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
On. Yeah. You're someone who's extremely versatile and played in lots of different contexts, which I always find to be super inspiring. Could you talk a little bit about some of the more, I don't want to say the wrong word, but like, let's just say more popular than experimental music groups that you work in?
Yeah.
Like Wild Bell, for example.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
how'd you get plugged into that band?
So that goes back to my associations with Nomo.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I got involved with Nomo because a good friend of mine who I played a lot of music with in high school, Eric Hall,
Mm-hmm.
he and I had a couple bands in high school, and we learned a lot together in those years. Like you just learn a lot of different things about music, and we kind of did that together a lot of the time. And so anyway, when I moved to New Orleans, he moved to Ann Arbor. I went to Michigan there, University of Michigan, and it was during his college years there that he met Elliot Bergman,
Okay.
and the band Nomo formed.
Got it.
And so when I came back here in 06, they had also just moved back to Chicago, the both of them, and we kind of reconnected. He introduced me to Elliot, and long story short, I basically started playing in Nomo in various capacities, percussion, some drum set, different stuff, recording, and that all that led to me just being in the group. And we did a lot of stuff, touring, did a ton of tours with them, a couple of records with that band, and that band, one way or another, sort of it didn't morph, but the band Wild Bell like grew out of Nomo.
Oh, okay.
With the addition of Natalie, Elliot's sister, and basically kind of supporting her songs, and it started really as a recording project more than anything. We were kind of like going in to record the new Nomo record, and Natalie had been playing with us, playing keyboards, percussion, singing some. We were kind of introducing more like singing, and as we were recording some of her tunes and stuff, we kind of landed into this place where we were like, we were with Bill Skibby at Key Club.
Oh yeah, that's
And,
that great studio in Michigan, right?
Yeah, in Benton Harbor.
Yeah.
And he's like, we were just like, I don't know what this is. This isn't really Nomo. He's like, no, this is your new band. This is your new band. I'm producing it. And that's that. And we're like,
Wow.
okay, yeah, I
So
don't
the
know.
engineer put the
Great,
band
good idea,
together.
actually. And it kind of turned into just it didn't even have a name, but we were like, this is great thing, featuring, really supporting Natalie's
Sure.
vocals and her songs.
Oh, cool.
And then that's how Wild Bell kind of formed.
Yeah.
And then that took off
Yeah.
rather quickly.
Yeah.
Probably, I want to say around 2011 or 12,
Okay.
13. In that space of time, we were super busy. And
You were doing a fair amount of touring with that.
yeah,
group.
we did a ton of touring over the years, really.
Yeah.
All through up until 2019.
Okay.
More or less.
If there was no pandemic, would you still be touring with that group, or was that?
It
was the
depends.
touring
I don't not
already-
exactly sure.
Oh, okay.
But things had kind of cooled off, for a number of reasons, and
Yeah, totally.
we were all kind of doing different things. But the pandemic, I'm not sure if we'd necessarily been on the road during 2020, possibly. But I still talk with Elliot, and Natalie actually has a new record. She kind of got it, wrote a bunch of new music, basically inspired by her dad's dying, which was a tragic incident, and kind of sent her into a certain space where she wrote a bunch of music, and it's really great, actually. She's got a new record that just came out.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's what she's
Awesome.
doing. Elliot's doing a
Great.
lot of art. We made some music in the past year, so
Cool.
we're still in touch and doing stuff.
Yeah.
But that band isn't technically really doing anything right now.
Got it.
I am doing stuff with Riley, though.
Riley Walker.
Yeah,
Okay.
Riley Walker.
Duo stuff or?
No, he has a new record that just came out. So I played with him off and on over the years.
Mhm. Yeah, he's wonderful.
Another sort of Chicago jazz meets sort of more indie or folk.
Sure. Yeah.
Along those lines. Of course, a bunch of Chicago luminaries have played with him in his bands over the years.
Definitely.
Frank Rosalie and Michael Avery and Anton,
Oh,
Brian
yeah.
Sulpizio, Bill McKay, myself. So we're actually doing a show in Chicago on Saturday.
Oh, wow. Where at?
At the Empty Bottle. They're
Okay.
doing an outdoor. I think it's called The Best Western, referencing Western Avenue, and yeah, it's sort of like a festival. So
Oh, that's cool.
so we'll be
that's
doing
great.
that. So we've got some rehearsals, and I'm looking
Great.
forward to getting back with those guys.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And speaking of more things that you're doing, I wanted to ask you, we have this uncertainty principle always connected to this pandemic. It's like we start to get into something, we try to plan, and things get knocked down the road or things get canceled all the time.
Right.
But what are the things that you're looking really forward to doing, both your own stuff and with other people? Let's say that the pandemic finally ends in a month and we're able to just travel and really start touring.
I
Is
mean,
there
that's
anything-
it. Yeah, I would like to do that again.
Yes, yeah.
Haven't done any sort of a tour,
Right.
in the longest time probably ever since I started touring. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I have been fortunate to be able to work and perform and create with a lot of people in the last 6 months or so.
Sure.
Since vaccines became more available to everyone, and so I've been working with Greg Ward kind of a lot.
Great.
He has a group that he calls Rogue Parade.
Cool.
And it's we've been sort of busy, and we did a run at the Showcase
Okay.
in July, I believe. Yeah, in July, and went straight into the studio and recorded.
Great.
And so that is in the finishing stages, and that will come out sometime in 2022, I think. And that group, we had been kind of getting busier as far as touring. We did a trip to Europe, we played a couple festivals, and so I'm looking forward to doing more with them.
Great.
I think there's a lot that can go on with that group. It's a lot of potential. And then I've had. It's funny, right before the pandemic hit, in February. I mean, I guess it was already hitting parts of the world. I took my group to Europe for a short tour. We actually were in Europe in February of 2019 or 2020.
Right before.
Yeah, and so it was probably all around us while we were out there. We were in the Netherlands and Belgium, and that was it was one of these tours that was sort of it was not going to net very well financially, and I was sort of like leading up to it, just sort of like, oh man, this is kind of a crazy idea that we're doing this. Like, it's not that many shows, and we're gonna fly all the way over there. It's gonna cost a lot. We're not gonna make a lot of money, but guys are down, so I'm just gonna do it. And so there were a lot of like apprehensions going in.
Yeah.
Of course, while we were there, and all the shows were great. And, we did a thing with Rosalie. Like we hung out with everyone, and it was just really super, successful on those levels. And then of course, pandemic less than a month later. And we were all just like so happy we had done that. That was one of those things where the whole pandemic, we're like, man,
thank God we did
thank
that.
God we did that.
Yeah,
the
totally,
trip, and so, yeah, I definitely would like to get that group working more outside of Chicago, and probably need to start thinking about making another record soon.
Yeah, because your last record under your name is at The Shadow and the Light.
Yes.
And that's on Astral Spirits.
Yeah.
Is that the same band that you took to Europe?
More or less. The record has like an extended group on it, but the main core quintet is me with Matt Eulery, Jason Stein, Nate Lapine, and Nick Brosti.
Cool.
And that 5-piece has been playing together for a lot of years now, actually. And that's the main group on the first record, which is called The Other Side of Time. Ben Boy does play on one track.
Wow,
but otherwise, it's just that quintet. And then the Shadows and the Light, we have, we're joined by Rob Clearfield on some of the material, and Greg Ward, and Nick Mazzarella. I guess that's the complete group,
It sounds like you got a lot on the horizon, especially if we can get over this pandemic for real.
Hopefully
I think a lot of us have a lot on the horizon, and we're just waiting to see what really happens.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting period, right?
Yeah, because we're kind of open, but
yeah, no one wants to commit too hard to but there's a lot of talk about 2022.
Yeah,
but even that is like,
I mean, there might be a huge surge
contingent upon a lot.
Yeah, it's what a crazy time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about your. You're also a DJ.
True.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Totally.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. I'd love to.
How'd you get into being a DJ? And what have you been doing in that realm?
It was always something that interested me. I mean, I've always been a record fanatic.
Cool.
Since we always had like vinyl records in my house, and we never didn't have them even all through the 90s, when they were kind of like cast aside for the most part. And so I always collected them. And really in high school, it was like I would go to Valhalla, which is still a great record store in Oak Park.
Right?
Yeah. And there was a record room that no one ever went into. It seemed to have like a coating of dust on it. And you could buy I could buy like a couple of Miles Davis quintet records for like $5 or $6 a piece.
Wow.
And so I would do that, and started my collecting then. And I was always a collector, just like a nerd about like this album, that album. Yeah. But also like super into just that sort of like vibe setting thing, or like I'm always the one at the party that wants to kind of take over the music.
Yeah, I've noticed that, man.
And like it would be like an iPod, and I'm like, whose iPod is this? Like, and I would just, that was always kind of, I just gravitated towards that. So the idea of like soundtracking someone's night at a bar just is sort of like seemed super like natural to me. Cool. And so I just decided I wanted to get into it and kind of put the word out, and kind of, I knew some people that did that already. And this is probably, I would say I started doing it maybe about 7 or 8 years ago.
Great.
And then it's also its own culture. I mean, DJ culture, the crate digging aspect of it, the exchanging of sort of music, and just kind of always constantly kind of looking for what's next, or just you're really just trying to be inspired by music. And then the art of actually the technical side.
Yeah, like if you're in certain context, matching beats, like that kind of art. Or I mean, the spectrum is so wide, because you look at Christian Marclay, which is all about just total experimentation.
Right.
And then there's matching beats, and then there's like
Right.
all these different forms
Yeah.
within
So
the realm.
I kind of do a little of all of it, you know. It always just kind of depends on the venue.
Yeah,
You know, like
sure.
I do some gigs that are like very much so a dance party.
So they
you
got to
know,
be moving.
And it's,
yeah,
so
you're
the
gonna
whole
be playing
point
beats.
is to like
yes.
make a dance party.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I love that. I mean, I bring completely different stuff to that than I do when I'm playing, you know, like recently, just last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, I did the thing at Garfield Park Conservatory, Plantasia, the event,
Oh, cool.
where it was like a tribute to that record Plantasia, and I was asked to like be set up in the Fern Room
Oh, yeah.
with turntables and just kind of soundtrack the Fern Room, and it was piped around.
Oh, cool.
And so for that I brought out like my Suzanne Ciani records and like different kinds of modular synth records and experimental stuff to just kind of be blending that and keep that vibe going for 4 hours or whatever, you know.
Wow.
And that was totally fun and inspiring. It's another creative process, you know, to just be like playing music, recorded music. It's not unlike, you know, stuff with the sampler. I don't know. It's like finding sounds and sharing them. I also, it's led me to finding music, like being a DJ and being
Sure.
like, okay, I have to do this
Yeah.
thing. It's like, forces me to dedicate time to just like, you know, like the digging, you know, which is
Absolutely.
also
Research.
done virtually.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
done, you know, people are putting out stuff just digitally that is really interesting,
Yeah.
or stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I also feel like I was talking to Jeff Albert about this, you know, trombonist, New Orleans trombonist,
Wonderful
friend of
musician.
mine.
Yeah.
And he was asking me about it, and I was talking about how much it really does, you know, the operating of really just like moving vinyl and using sliders on a mixer, you know, the faders,
Mm-hmm.
and how it is so hyperrhythmic that it is really like very natural to me rhythmically to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a flow.
There's a
and
flow
like,
to it. It's a physical technique. There's a lot of coordination necessary, and it's very rhythmic.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
don't have any sense of rhythm, you're not going to be able to do it very well.
No.
Or you're going to have different approaches, you
Right.
know. And it's learning the mechanics of it too, the same way that we learn mechanics of our instruments, you know. So I've found that to be pretty interesting, and it's just like anything else that you practice, whether you're matching beats or if you're just trying to do something. I like to also get into the experimental a little bit, even when I'm playing to a dance party. There's certain things you can do with speed,
Yeah.
with effects,
Totally.
you know, and I like to utilize those effects and utilize the different sort of, you know, even, you know, the old like turn off the turntable trick. So maybe most people don't know this, but like on a typical, you know, Technics 1200 turntable, there's the power knob.
Mm-hmm.
There's start stop, and if you stop it, it has that sound of a record stopping.
Right.
Kind of, there's like a
Yeah.
right. But if you actually turn it off, sound still travels out of it. So the platter starts to slow down in a much more gradual way.
Oh, wow.
But you can still hear it even if you've turned it off.
Interesting.
So that's a method that you know, you learn eventually that you can kind of utilize, is this like very gradual slowdown of the platter just stopping.
Yeah. That could be advantageous big time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can utilize
Yeah,
that. Of course,
definitely.
playing records backwards.
Yeah.
And just messing with different pitch, you know, the pitch adjust, which adjusts speed, of course. So I really dig that. Of course, now I have the gear too. That's the other hard thing, is that you want a DJ and it's like kind of cost prohibitive until you have, sort of like drumming.
Yeah, totally.
But I've gotten to the point where now I can have my own setup too. So that's
Great.
It's just fun to mess around. Different part of the brain a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Quinn, I mean, I'm afraid that just like I thought, we were only going to scratch the surface because we've known each other so well, but I think we're going to have to leave it there for
Great,
now and just
great.
have to have you back so we can continue this conversation.
I'd love to.
But I just want to say thanks. It was great to have you. Great to host you. A really nice set. Super interesting. Really beautiful. And we will see you out there.
Yeah,
And I
thank
look
you.
forward to it. So thanks, Quim.
Thank
Quin
you,
Kirchner,
Tim.
everybody.